I'm delighted to welcome today the lovely Cam, who runs First Step Rehabilitation, and something else, isn't it, Cam? I haven't got the title very right there. It's First Step. What?
It's First Step Rehab, Fitness and Support. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it says what it is on the tin. So thank you for having me here today, Elaine. And yes, shall I get started on my background then? Do you want to know a bit more?
Absolutely. Yeah, listeners are always intrigued as to why people do what they do, and there's always a story, and it's usually a story of somebody's, had problems themselves, got fit well, whatever, and then they're now helping others with that thing. But let's hear what your story comes.
Okay. So where I started my journey, I've always done education in the sense of choosing subjects and choosing courses and degrees, which I really love to do. So I've always gone with what I've got passion for. And I've always been into sort of sports and biology and science and all that kind of stuff. So I ended up doing a degree in sport and exercise science. And from there, I had this absolutely wonderful opportunity to work with a team of doctors and professors in Glenfield Hospital in Leicestershire for a whole year, working with people with cardiac problems and lung problems, and how exercise can affect people who have quite chronic long-term health conditions. And it was amazing to see the results. I was working in a research lab with these doctors who were qualifying to get their MD. So I was in there doing biopsies with them. I was in there doing all sorts of ergometers where they're on the cycle. These poor people who have got heart conditions are strapped up to a bike, and they've got things on their face, and they've got blood coming out one end, and they've got blood pressure taken the other end, and a biopsy taken the other end. It was amazing to see what the results were and how powerful exercise can be on the human body, despite what conditions you've had. So I ended up doing a pilot study while I was there to see how endurance training was something they already managed to prove with research. And they wanted to see what strength training does. We know strength training would help as well, but they needed the research and the journals to back that up. So I got the pilot study started on that, which ended up going into a full-blown 3-year study after I left my placement year. So of course that opened my eyes up to the world of exercise with people with long-term health conditions, which is where I've, funnily enough, always stayed on that line. So as soon as I graduated, I promptly ended up in the NHS as a rehabilitation assistant for about 10 years. So I worked helping in a multidisciplinary team with doctors, nurses, physios, OTs, social workers, the whole multidisciplinary team. And I ended up helping rehab people in their own homes after they'd come out of hospital. I worked with an early stroke rehab discharge team as well. I worked with, in particular, units dotted around Milton Keynes so when people need to be a bit more sort of rehabbed exercise-wise before they go home after hospital. And then I ended up working in Milton Keynes A&E for 3 years as well. So I ended up getting quite a vast experience in health conditions, and not only experience and training in it, but also, working with them on a daily basis. So really understanding the patterns of, say, someone who's got Parkinson's, or someone who's got dementia, someone who's got health issues, someone who's had a hip replacement, knee replacement, that kind of stuff. Anything could come in during, A&E, and you could see anything on a daily basis. You could see all sorts of conditions. So I got a really full hands-on experience working with all these long-term health conditions. And then 10 years was long enough, and I wanted to sort of move on. So I decided to move on, and I promptly fell into personal training. So I did the course, which was a complete breeze compared to doing my degree. And I got that qualification pretty much straight away. And then I promptly went into another course that's called Exercise Referral, which allows me to work with people with health conditions. So I put the 2 and 2 together. I started doing personal training in a gym, quickly realized I'm not the person who's going to teach people in a gym, and my clientele are not going to be in gyms. So did a lot of soul searching, a lot of journeys to find out what I was going to offer. And first step, Rehab Fitness and Support was born, and I help people who actually have long-term health conditions, and they've gone through their NHS journey or their private sort of health journey with all the physios and the OTs and consultants and whatever they need to do. And this is where I come in for regular exercise, A, to build their strength up, and B, to maintain what they've got as well, so they can stay at a certain level and build up despite what condition they've got. So I specialise in low impact and chair-based exercises, and currently it's all online. And currently, you know, we do online classes, we have one-to-one sessions, I've got an online membership program, and I've got a new project literally in the pipeline as we speak as well. So, and my ethos is just to get people moving. My strapline is to make exercise accessible to everyone. And there's a lot of conditions out there that are like fibromyalgia, functional neurological disorder, EDS. There's more and more of these diagnoses happening as well. And those are kind of conditions I've come across many times before, and really know how to help people get moving in a safe manner without jumping and running, literally. So that's my story.
Brilliant, absolutely fascinating, and so delighted to meet you, because the types of people that I support, many of them have got long-term chronic conditions, many of them have cancer, and many are in pain, and I myself have a dodgy back, and the chair-based exercises, I'm going to be talking to you separately about that for me, because I need to do something. But you mentioned Glenfield Hospital, that made my ears prick up, because some years ago I used to run cardiovascular health clinics, and I had my thing is helping people to understand what's inside their body, which is what I still do now. I don't do the cardiovascular health clinics, but I'm really keen for people to do testing to find out what's what. And when I was running the cardiovascular health clinics, I was finding that a lot of the people who came to me were on the outside fit, but their insides weren't very fit, and a lot of personal trainers actually. So when I showed them what was happening inside their body through a particular device that I had, so I could pretty accurately assess what condition their artery was in, what condition their heart was in, and so on. And it's all about prevention rather than wait till you get poorly and then you know, after the horse is bolted, sort of thing. So by assessing the likelihood of somebody having a heart attack or a stroke, we can then look at their diet, their lifestyle, exercise, etc., etc. And a lot of the people who claim to be, you know, well on the outside, as an example, I stopped a lady running the Bath Half Marathon many years ago. She was, I was doing some assessments in a pharmacy. So this was when the law changed and pharmacists were all told that they had to have a consulting room. And then a lot of them were thinking, well, you know, that's taking up retail space. What are they going to use in place? So I was running clinics in chiropractic offices and some pharmacies, dentists, those sorts of places. And so I was happened to be in this pharmacy one day, and she came in sort of last knockings, picture of health, absolute picture of health. Her blood pressure was through the roof, you know, 200 and something plus. Absolutely, I mean, how the woman was standing, I don't know. And she was training to do the Bath Half Marathon. She'd only got about 10 days to go. She looked super fit, but the numbers were completely off the scale. And I said to her, please don't race. You know, please don't race. Go straight to your doctor now. And she was horrified when she saw her results. Thank heaven she took my guidance. So sometimes exercise isn't the thing that you need at that time. So I was, obviously that lady was an extreme case. Very often I was telling people to modify the exercise they were doing, because they were throwing themselves around a gym, all sorts of strength this and fast that, and so on and so forth. As a result, they were putting pressure on their heart, their cardiovascular system, completely wrong you know, in my view. And of course their blood pressure was up and so on and so forth. So how do you assess with what you do now and all the experience you've had, how do you assess kind of starting point? What when you take a client on, what is your first protocol?
So first things first is always quite an in-depth consultation to really find out what their history is, what medication they're on, you know, how they've got to this certain point, you know, what's their fitness, what's their history in fitness, and really work. And if I have had you've mentioned heart conditions, I have had a heart condition lady who was very young, still sort of late 20s, early 30s at the moment. And for her, then it would go further on doing blood pressures and making sure her sort of resting heart rate, what that was, resting blood pressure, and then after she did exercise, what it was afterwards, and keeping a close eye on that. So it depends on the client, but someone who's got a heart issue, then I'll focus on it a bit more. And really, I think it's the understanding of what their condition is and then assessing them initially and seeing what they can and can't do. Start off with a very small, easy, basic program and see how they cope with it. And some people sail through it fine. Majority of them find it quite taxing. So it's finding their baseline and then building up on that baseline and saying, look, here's session 1, I'm going to build you up gradually and see how far you get. And sometimes they do take, I'm sure you know, with long-term health conditions, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen with the most vigorous, intense workout. That's probably the worst thing, you've just mentioned that they can do. It's gentle. I think people underestimate the power of gentle exercise, chair-based and low impact, where you're not jumping and running, you're not running, you know, burpees and all sorts, but you're still exercising the body and what the body can cope with in the limits that the body can cope with. So if it's for heart conditions, it's knowing that they stay below that threshold before it starts to accelerate their blood pressure, puts too much pressure on their heart. And they all improve. That's the thing. They all improve amazingly. If you had told me this young lady of mine was able to jog, not run, but jog around Caldecott Lake in Milton Keynes after a year of training with me, she never would have believed it. But it took her a year to build up gradually, and she stayed within her limit and built up her baseline. So a baseline could be here. I've not changed the heart condition. The heart condition is always going to remain, but her threshold to cope with the exercise and her baseline improved. So it's taking each individual, and this is where I do take pride in the fact that I speak to every client, whether they're in one-to-one or a class or an online membership program, is understand thoroughly where they're coming from and how they're managing with their conditions. So that's how I do that.
Right, and it's really important, isn't it, to explain to people that this isn't a sudden thing that you're going to do and overnight you're suddenly going to be running marathons and so on, because it's too easy these days to press a button and everything is instant. But with your health, you haven't got into the state that you're in overnight, so why would you expect to get better overnight? And it's a huge mindset shift, isn't it, that people have to have this kind of realization, the awakening that it's in their own hands, but you have to do it, you know, with guidance from people who know what they're talking, and clearly you know your stuff. So it's absolutely delightful to meet you.
Absolutely. I think I don't advertise myself as the weight loss coach or anything like that, because yes, weight loss will always help ease off all these conditions, but if they're in chronic pain and they can't move properly, and say for example they've got fibromyalgia where exhaustion kicks in quite considerably and it can knock them for 6, you have to balance it correctly first. We need to get them moving in a safe manner first, as much pain-free as possible, and also, you know, a workout that they can manage without knocking themselves out for a week or 2 where they can't get out of bed. The weight loss will come if they make this lifestyle change. This is something they have to it has to become part of their routine to exercise regularly. And as you know, the minute they stop, it can easily reverse and go backwards. So hence why it's also maintaining the exercises. So I've got quite a lot of clients that have been with me for a year or two now. They've reached their goals, but now they want to maintain and keep themselves at that level. And I know that we've got the accountability in the classes and the one-to-ones, so therefore they stick with us. So
that's a really good point, and the maintenance side of things, because a lot of the people that I support through cancer, in fact, I've just had somebody contact me again. I helped them through bladder cancer, kidney and bladder cancer a few years ago, and everything went well, and they followed my suggestions alongside the medic. So I never say one way. There's no one size fits all. It's a combination, an integral approach. So they did really well, and then a few years later they'd come back saying, "Oh, I've now got a problem with spread other thing," and it's usually because they've got complacent and they've kind of fallen off the wagon, so to speak. So it's a case of doing everything again that they did before, but obviously speed and like an engine now.
And sticking to it.
Yeah. So the maintenance is really important. And it's almost like I kind of liken it to a hearing aid. People who need support with hearing, when they're wearing the hearing aid, they can hear better. When the hearing aid is not there, they can't hear too well. So they have to maintain that, whatever that balance is.
Absolutely.
So how do people find you? Where do you
So I am very, very, very visible on social media, particularly on Facebook. If you type in First Step Rehab Fitness and Support, you should see my lovely face pop up. So social media, mainly on Facebook and LinkedIn, and I've got a website that's up and running well as well, and managed to get quite a few clients by just having the correct website with the correct SEO, so people can find me, particularly locally. And I've also got newsletters that go out, so people can sign up to my newsletters, and so they can know what we're getting up to once a month as well. So, and word of mouth works. When one person likes the service, then they talk. People talk when things are helping them. They do talk to their friends and so on and so forth. So that's what I'm doing at the moment, to sort of stay visible, and a whole lot of networking to speak to people and spread the message. So, and it's not necessarily the people I'm networking to, but it's people they know that may, and it works. It does work when I do something quite different. So when somebody thinks, oh, that person's got a hip problem, they need to see Cam. So I just make sure I've got my message clear in what I actually offer. And then the work does, people tend to find me.
That really does make a difference, isn't it? The recognition that it's not necessarily the people you're talking to, it's the people that they know that's important. So being clear on your message, and a lot of practitioners fail at this part because they think, well, somebody's got a pulse, whoever's got a pulse, I can help them. Well, niching down what you do is really important, and you've clearly got your target market, target audience.
I'm getting the right, getting the right people.
Yeah, and again, that doesn't happen overnight, does it? You have to, you worked out that being a gym bunny isn't your thing. You're not catering to the market. You're catering to specifically people with long-term conditions who pretty much didn't think that they could ever do the things that you're guiding them and supporting them with.
Absolutely. I've had a lady, I'll give an example. I met a gentleman in a networking group just before Christmas, and it literally, he had a 30-second pitch from me, and next thing I know, he's emailing me, and his wife had a stroke 8 years ago, and he said as soon as she's had the stroke, she's kind of forgotten who she is. She's lost her confidence. She's now not moving much. She's sort of staying indoors all the time. And he instantly, he says, I'm going to work on my wife. I think she needs you. And he worked on her over Christmas. He worked on her over January. And then we had a call last week, and she was so nervous, bless her. So we came on Zoom like we are now. and she was so nervous. And I think this is where my experience comes in. When you've worked in the heart of the NHS and you've worked in A&E when people have so much trauma, you learn how to empathise and talk to people and pull out their strengths and try and get them to look positive. And that's exactly what I did, and she relaxed instantly, and I'm pleased to say she joined the class. And to be fair, I think it was worse in her head as opposed to how bad, you know, in her head she thought, I've got a stroke, I've got speech impairment, therefore I'm really, really bad. But she still walks up the stairs on her own. She still is able to lift her arms above her head. She's managing to squat. You know, yes, she's doing chair-based exercises, but she's not as bad as she thought she was. And this is what I come across, is that mindset that you've mentioned before, Elaine. It's actually realising that this is where you are. You're not as bad as you are. Let me help you take your first step and go forwards. And once they've got that reassurance, they absolutely soar. They absolutely, you know, I've seen so many stories where once they've got the right guidance, they absolutely just grow as people. And this is where I think First Step offers that safe environment to allow them to grow. No judgment whatsoever. No, everything's always positive. Everything, we laugh, we joke, and we get on with it. And it works. It works.
Brilliant. And it's so rewarding, isn't it, when you see a client whose confidence is growing and they flourish and they don't just grow, they glow, don't they? With pride and confidence and self-esteem raises and all that kind of stuff. I find that people, because what I'm doing now, I'm not running the Cardiovascular Health, as I mentioned. I've created a program over the years now. I've got 2 home assessments where people can do a dry blood analysis, sent home, and a hair mineral analysis. So that shows what's going on in the body, you know, from a physical perspective. You can see the reports, and then 2 online profile and in essence detailed with as well, one pH levels, sugar levels, diet, nutrition. There's a whole load of stuff in there. So I bring that all together in a Zoom call and then guide on which direction to go. So a lot of people, I end up passing on to associates, you know, referring to people like yourself who've got specialist expertise. And mindset is a big one, because people don't think they can do, you know, it's too big a leap. So I think the name of your organisation, First Step, for listeners who are on audio and then can't see your visual here, you've got a nice banner at the back of you, First Step. So it's 1 STEP, and that's your logo, isn't it?
Yeah, First Step as in, yeah, was 1 ST and then step, yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you. Remind
us of your so what's your website details, and can you spell out your website for listeners?
So it's www.firststep, so it's 1 ST STEP RFS.com. So www.firststeprfs.com. So it's Rehab, Fitness and Support. I've condensed down, otherwise it'll be a very long email address.
Yes, yeah, indeed. Okay. Well, it's lovely to meet you, Cam. Absolutely delightful, and I'm sure I will be passing people in your direction of all kinds of conditions in the coming days. Just before we finish, any particular top tips that you'd like to share with listeners?
What I am coming across at the moment is the more lockdowns we're having here, it's a lot of people are realising this is going on longer than they expected. And if you do have a health condition or you have very low fitness and you feel like you're going slower and slower and slower and not moving, just be aware that we are here. There's a lot you can do within your own home without any equipment if needs be, and you don't need to have specialist gear to wear anywhere. You know, just get in touch. There is a way to keep you moving, keep you speaking to other people who've got similar conditions to you, and also so you don't need to be isolated. You don't physically, you can improve yourself, and mentally you can improve yourself. There is help out there. Don't just sit there on your own and get sort of bogged down with what's going on around you. You know, there's something we can do about it now. Technology is amazing, and I can see anyone anywhere in the country right now, so why not tap in and have a chat? So
brilliant. And remind us of your Facebook and LinkedIn presence. Well, how do people find you on there?
So on Facebook, it is First Step Rehab Fitness and Support. That's my business page. You'll find me with that, first as in 1ST. And then on LinkedIn, it's my name. So if you look for Kamaljit Saggu, shall I spell that out?
Yes, please.
Kamaljit, and my surname is Saggu. You'll find me on LinkedIn, and it will have First Step Rehab Fitness and Support written all over it. And come and find me and see what I do and what I get up to.
Fabulous. It's been lovely speaking with you, and I hope the listeners will take heed of what you've been saying. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are, you can improve your well-being even by sitting in a chair. You know, it's not a big deal these days, it really isn't. And with the advent of the video technology, anybody anywhere can be helped. So I wish you the best of luck, and it sounds an absolute fabulous business you've got there, but it's the passion that drives you, and your experience is second to none. So thank you very much, Cam.
Thank you very much for having me, Elaine. Thank you. Look after yourself.